We try not to go custom. We try to be, conscious of our customers and their budget. And I think it's always better if you can use something off the shelf, because usually it's something that is being used by a wide variety of people. So there's better support than building and rolling your own custom implementation of something. But sometimes you don't have a choice, and that's where we come in.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with my most amazing guest, Dustin. Dustin, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So give everybody the highlight of who you are and what you'd love to do for business.
Sure. So my name is Dustin DeVries. I'm one of the co-founders here at Caffeine Interactive Technologies. We are a husband and wife founded company. I got a team of about 20 employees. We build software, anything from simple websites to complex web and mobile enterprise level types of applications. Definitely focus quite a bit on, as of late, on applications as it comes to and pertains to business automation.
Nice. I love it. So what is it, or let's back up the bus a little bit. How did you get into business applications as a thing?
I spent the first 10 years of my career out of college working in the semiconductor industry. From that, I was working with a lot of internal customers. So serving, my role within the company was serving our internal engineers, essentially. And so a lot of work on like automating workflows and finding ways to make them more efficient, get the tools to do what they need them to do so they could be creative and do what they do best and have the tools kind of fall in line. And so kind of developed a passion around that, I guess, just because it's interesting. I've always been a guy who lives and breathes and loves efficiency. And so being able to provide software solutions to improve efficiency has always been really, I guess, kind of something that just, something I've always enjoyed. So I enjoy seeing the improvements I can make for others.
Nice. I love it. So what do you see is kind of the biggest misconception of what it is that you do? What do people think you do, and what do you actually do?
Well, probably a lot of the misconception comes from like more on like the like what does it cost, right? For the time, because if you just think about like websites, I mean, what do you think a website should cost to build a new like brochure type website? Any idea? What would you
Well,
ask you? I know you're supposed to be asking me the questions,
I
but
happen to have run a digital marketing tech company, so I have a little bit more of an in.
Okay. So then maybe you're not the right person to ask that, to for the rest of the
I
class.
happen to know that it's anywhere from 500 a page to 50,000 a page. It depends on what you want.
Exactly. And so it's funny when we go into like competitive bid situations, we tend to lie somewhere in the middle because there's going to be those really outlier, super expensive ones. And then the person who's like, yeah, I can build you a new website for $299, and it's like, yeah, we're not anywhere in there. So that comes up a lot. Like people being uncertain about what it costs. There's also a lot of misconceptions around like, right now we've got a lot of stuff with like no code when it comes to apps, and on the web side of things, you've got tools like Wix, GoDaddy has their own page builder, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of misconceptions, I think, around how much effort goes into this. And I like to tell people when we're, initially kicking off project or in the kind of the pre-sales mode of things, is like, there's different needs for different types of companies. If you're, I've used this line a lot, I'm gonna use it again. If you're a business that's just starting out and you've got $10,000 in your pocket and you're trying to get a website off the ground, you're trying to get business cards and all the other expenses that go into starting a business. I mean, you don't need to put, 89% of that budget into your website, right? Unless you're starting like an online store, you're doing something that's very specific online, then maybe
it depends
make
on
that
what you're
case.
starting, actually.
Right.
You
Yeah.
might want to put 100% of that into it.
Right. Yeah. But, in general, though, like if you're, starting you're a plumber or something, you decided to go off and start your own business. I mean, yeah, there's probably a lot of other things you can do, and then you can get a basic web presence with something like a Wix. So we don't necessarily, well, it's easy for us as developers to kind of look down on some of these, one-stop shops that you can drag and drop and build a website in 45 minutes kind of thing. I don't actually look down on that, because I think there's a place for that. There's a market for that. And certain people do, can realize a lot of benefit from that. And then as they grow, come to a company like us, where we do a more customized approach to web development and design.
All right, so what kind of things do you customize? Because I know there's a lot of misconception around that as well, in that they think that as soon as you go and do something kind of funky, you need custom. And then on the other hand, it's like, oh, I just want to do this. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty custom.
Yeah, well, and it depends. I mean, we like to consider ourselves somewhat solution agnostic, meaning that
Mhm.
we look at, or technology agnostics, we look at the different types of options that are out there. But we always start with what is the problem that you're trying to solve. If it's a website, it's common to say it's going to be more customers, right? So it's just bringing more traffic and having a better experience for those customers. And then if it's a nonprofit or something, it might be something around donations or around advocacy around a cause or something like that. So for us, a lot of times is trying to understand that problem and match the technology to their needs. And when you think about custom, I mean, there's a trade-off here. I mean, certainly we use technologies like WordPress, for example. There's a huge ecosystem of plugins and options and add-ons and everything else that you can do. So if you're trying to integrate, say, WordPress with QuickBooks, for example, well, there's probably already a plugin out there that does that. Now, sometimes you may want something super specific, somewhat custom, that plugin doesn't provide. And so the customizations come in from actually going in and extending that plugin. Or if the plugin doesn't get enough coverage, maybe we have to go build something from scratch. Some API integrations, things like that are often, when you want to integrate two different systems, a lot of times that requires some customization. There's also some great options out there like Zapier to do some of that. So it just depends on, depends on the company, depends on the industry, depends on the need. We try not to go custom. We try to be, conscious of our customers and their budget. And I think it's always better if you can use something off the shelf, because usually it's something that is being used by a wide variety of people. So there's better support than building and rolling your own custom implementation of something. But sometimes you don't have a choice, and that's where we come in.
Nice. So who would you say is your favorite clientele, or who comes to you the most often?
Yeah, I love working with small businesses. But and that's not very specific. I know that's a pretty broad range. We've worked with, it's hard to say. Like, I mean, I can talk about the characteristics of the people, right? Like
Yeah.
people who pay on time and never gripe and always love everything we do, right? I mean, that's the easy answer. But we've worked with, like, for example, some oil and gas supply companies. We're based here in Texas, so a lot of oil and gas in our area, and we're more central Texas. You move down to like the Gulf Coast, there's a lot more of that. But we've worked with a few companies in that space, and I've really enjoyed that, because I think it's one of those kind of small niches that, I mean, it's actually a big niche that, that do a lot of business, but it's one that people don't really think about a whole lot. People think about oil and gas, but they're thinking about, like, the big oil and gas companies, Exxons and people like that, not the small uh, distributor that, has a warehouse and ships valves and pipes and things like that. So understanding things about their business and their specific needs and the way they do quotes and the way they do orders and the way they build customer loyalty, that kind of stuff is fun for me, because it feels like it's kind of an underserved market, because it's just not one that people think about a lot. Other markets like real estate. Real estate's been, that's a well-trodden path. There's been so many people go into real estate and trying to come up with new apps and new ideas and new concepts and try to focus specifically on, an industry like real estate. But some of these other, like, underserved markets are actually, I find them pretty interesting.
Nice. So when it comes to kind of being able to look at the strategy of the business, what would you say is more important for the development of their systems? Is it the strategy that you're trying to implement, the end goal, the problem you're trying to solve? Which one of those in your mind takes precedence?
I'm not sure I follow the question. You're saying
Yeah.
when we think about strategy,
Yeah. So
which
when
is,
you're working with somebody, what are you looking to achieve kind of foremost for your clients?
well, I mean, I think maybe it's getting a little cliche now, but it's so true. Like, always want to think about what problem it is we're trying to solve, and so starting with the problem, making sure we all define the problem really well, everyone understands the problem, because it's really easy to start talking about solutions. Like, if someone comes in and wants, like, we keep going to websites, and obviously we do apps and a lot of more complex things as well. But just for a simple website, people come in and they automatically have an idea of what they want their design to be. They already have some preconceived notion of what they're expecting, and I always want to try to step back and say, let's make sure we understand, like, why are we even doing this? Do you feel like you're not getting enough customers? Do you feel like that your website isn't serving the customer base that you work with? Is it more of a, content issue where you're having a lot of trouble with being able to create content and publish it on your website because it's restrictive? Let's understand what the problems are first, and then make sure that we're fitting the solution to that problem, as opposed to just, someone says, yeah, we've got a budget, we're ready to go build a new website, and we start, designing beautiful screens, right? Because that may or may not be solving the fundamental, like, underlying problem that they have.
Very cool. So give us an example of a Cinderella story of one of your clients.
um I think which one I want to talk about. That's always a fun question. One that comes to mind is we have a company based out in the Northwest, here in the U.S. that works with medical gas equipment. So, like, you think about like a hospital or a dentist office. What they do is they go in, say, for a facility like a hospital, they have these medical gas hookup lines for oxygen, different types of gas they use within each patient room. And those things need to be audited from time to time, go in and check out, make sure the equipment's working well, take certain measurements, make sure everything's up to code. And so we had a customer who was doing that all by hand, using pen and paper, spreadsheets, things like that. Then they have to go in, collect all this data, then compile a report at the end. We worked with them, talking about their process, their flow, what they were looking to do, and help them build an application that would allow them to go in, basically create a room schedule, and they go into a facility like this and start entering in all of their data into an app. It's actually an iPad app, and it works offline, by the way, too, which is really cool because they can enter stuff in. Because a lot of times when you're in a hospital, you may not have, Wi-Fi access or whatever else. They're able to enter all that data in. And at the end, when they're done with all that, they can spit out a report pretty fast, whereas before that was a very manual process. As an example, we built a really cool app. And we also create a lot of value for them because it really improved their efficiency and throughput to be able to perform more of these audits, because they weren't doing as much of the custom work they were used to doing. They're just going in and doing their job, turn out these reports really quickly, and it helped them with capacity issues. And they have issues like a lot of companies do with hiring and things like that. So they were able to get more productivity out of all of their employees by employing this new tool. So that's one that I think we saw really good value for the customer, and feel really proud of the end results.
Nice. I love it. So are you also working with people to kind of get the reports, get the data that they're looking for, and being able to, because there's one thing to be able to have a flow of the process. There's another thing to know that the flow is working and you're actually getting the results on a regular basis. Usually that's through reports, but it might not be in some cases.
Yeah, so I mean, we had to go through a whole, like, discovery phase with them and understanding how their reports work, and thinking about and I'm trying to remember with this particular client, I believe they had kind of a standard boilerplate audit report that they would use, and then just a bunch of blank areas they would go in and fill in the details on. And so kind of working with them to understand that, and of course setting up everything for that. There's some other weird concerns with this one, because it was one that we weren't going to go publish this out on the App Store, for example, because it was very specific to that company and just a small group of users who'd be using the app. So setting some things up around that. And then as far as like quality control and things like that, it was more about building some subsystems into the product itself to be able to do some automated QA. So as we make changes, we're able to tell if those changes broke anything. And then of course, like I said, discovery was big on this, because we had to go through a lot of looking through the reports, understanding the reports, understanding how they work. I mean, it's one of the other challenges too, because we haven't taken on just trying to completely go niche on a specific industry. An industry like that, we didn't have a lot of knowledge of that industry going in. So on our side, I wouldn't say it was a lot of catch up, because it was pretty straightforward, but still we had to, become at least enough of an expert to be able to understand the needs and problems so we could solve those.
Very cool. So what would you say are some of the stumbling blocks that somebody might be having in their business, thinking, oh man, Dustin, we need you so badly?
I mean, easy thing is, like, if you have any system we're doing like double or triple entry, it's like when the customer places the order, we have to go to the inventory system. We have to like, deduct one from whatever part it was they order, stuff like that is like, pretty basic, and something we look at. And just, I think sometimes people don't realize what options are out there in terms of automation and the things that they can do. And they're also maybe sometimes a little bit fearful of it, because, when we start thinking about automation, we think about like the grocery store with the self-checkout lines, because cashiers are running out of jobs. We're thinking about autonomous vehicles and like truck drivers and stuff that are going to be losing their jobs as this goes on. And so it can be a little bit fearful, but I think and we're in the same boat. I mean, you look at like what's going on right now with like all the craze around chat GPT and AI. It'd be really easy for us to be a little bit afraid of like what's on the horizon. But I think for us, we're looking at it as an opportunity and saying, let's see what we can do to capitalize on this. How can we utilize this to get above the fold with everything, the shift that's happening in the industry? There's obviously going to be some types of projects we may not work anymore because AI eventually, displaces us from being able to do that. But that's fine. We can focus on things that are maybe more difficult for AI to capture. And I think it's the way I look at with a business. When we think about a business owner, just going through and looking at the things that you do and the things that your team does and thinking, okay, well, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? I mean, there's a good exercise. I have someone I was working with who kind of went through this exercise with me, and he said, kind of write down everything you do in a given week and categorize it into 3 different columns. There's the things that you do that are like $10 an hour tasks, the things that you do that are like you could pay someone $100 an hour to do. There's things that you do that you would have to pay someone like $1,000 an hour to do. And so the easy thing to do is take everything you have that's $10 an hour and look for ways, whether it's outsourcing, getting a virtual assistant, or maybe you can build software and automation to resolve some of those things. And so that's another kind of exercise we'll sometimes do with our customers, just to think through like what it is that they're doing on a day-to-day basis and how we can automate that.
Nice. So when it comes to kind of the diversity of businesses, as you said earlier, I mean, there was a little bit of a learning curve there, but to me, kind of business is business, and when you understand kind of the process and how data has to flow from one center to the other, especially when you understand the technology, I think the way you do, it's almost like understanding, like a plumber understands fluids going through, an electrician understands the direction of the electricity going through. You have an understanding of business and the concepts of where the data has to flow through, and being able to capture those. Was there any projects that you found really unique that you're going, okay, that one was exceptional?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like which one I would pick. There's definitely been some that have been challenging. I mean, we worked on a really big project within one of our partners in the semiconductor industry that was an intellectual property management platform. And so, you had different stakeholders involved in this. And I had a background in semiconductor, having worked in it for 10 years and having worked with a lot of IP and worked with lawyers and things like that. So I kind of understood the landscape a little better going into that, but there was still a lot of complexity. You think about the different stakeholders. You've got the end users, which are like the engineers and maybe sometimes sales and marketing people that are using this tool. You've got people who are like C-level executives who are logging in, and they're concerned more about reporting as opposed to things like looking at IP libraries or looking at IP. They're concerned about IP reuse, but they're not actually physically going in and downloading intellectual property to use on their projects. And then you've got the lawyers and their concerns, because when you think about intellectual property, sometimes there's licensing agreements and things that need to be signed off on. So just a lot of moving parts. And so I think it's kind of using, engineering concepts to sort of break down the larger problem into smaller, more manageable problems, and figuring out how you can work all of those. One of the things that we try to do as a business too, we're big proponents of having multiple stakeholders when it comes to building an application. So for example, having like a product manager or business analyst who advocates for the user experience and the overall vision of the product. You have maybe the marketing and sales team that's worried about, well, how are we going to market this? How does this help? How do we get this message out? And you have the development team that's responsible for or advocating for how to build a product as efficiently as possible. And so when you bring all those people together, they all have they have their thing that they're advocating for. And if it's done right, everyone kind of pushes on each other a little bit. And in the end, you come out with a well-balanced solution that balances all of those needs from all of those different stakeholders. I think that's an important part of our process when we think about building apps and doing business automation projects, whatever it is, those kind of projects we do for our customers. I think that multiple stakeholder concept is really important, and that helps us also with understanding the needs, because we can compartmentalize. Me coming into a project, I can compartmentalize around my specific needs within that project versus other people who are contributing on that project.
Nice. Love it. So when you're working on a project, what's one thing that you wish people understood better about what you do?
Oh man. Um, I think sometimes we try to be very turnkey with the way we do things. And so a lot of times there's quite a bit going on under the hood that people don't see. There's a lot of internal meetings and discussions around the problems that our customers have and how we can uniquely solve those problems. And we do try to be very transparent, but we also, it's a balance between wanting to be transparent about everything and then also, wanting to be able to keep making progress and making things move smoothly for our customers. So I think that that is something, it's always difficult because you don't want to, we tend to overshare. I think when it comes to reporting progress and reporting, status on projects and things like that, because I just believe good communication, the biggest thing we hear from people who come to us who may work with another agency is like, yeah, they working on this for months and months and they could never quite figure it out. And like we would email and we wouldn't hear back for 2 weeks. And we were always concerned about what was going on. And we've never wanted to be in that situation with our customers. I don't know if we ever have been in that situation with our customers because we're always very transparent about what's going on. But there are times when we do, we can't just overload the customer with every single thing that goes on. And so I think sometimes there's a lot of work that goes into things. And it's not even just, sometimes it's not even just like actual coding and stuff like that. It's things like going through conceptual discussions about how to solve a problem. Maybe it's UI considerations or something else. We have multiple people on our side talking through things. And I don't think customers, until you've gone through that process and been a part of that, you don't truly understand and value how important that is. This is like getting all the specs right on the project before you start building. Just like if you're going to go build a custom home, for example, you'd want a good solid set of blueprints and understand where everything is. You wouldn't want to just go out and start buying lumber and nails and stuff and show up and start pouring concrete and say, well, we'll figure out where the kitchen's going to go when we get to that point. No, you want to have everything well mapped out so you know what you're building. And I think that's real important with our process.
Nice. So when it comes to kind of doing the gamut that you do, because going from websites to apps to, to user interface systems are three very different projects. I was going to say, which one is your favorite? Or what is your favorite aspect of each one? Let's put it that way. So if we're just looking at the kind of the websites, the applications, and what I'm going to call user interface programs, like big projects.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, they all have their specialties. I mean, I'm more, I come from a very strong, like software centric background. My degree was in computer science. And so I understand software algorithms. I love building complex software. That's probably the thing that we love to focus on the most. But the problem we have is when it comes to the marketing and sales side of things, like how do we prospect to people? How do we find people who have a need for those specific kind of things? And so a lot of times it's easier to have a conversation around something like a website need. And then that allows us to understand more about the business. And then as we get, I don't like using the word entrenched because it sounds like we're trying to like set up shop and just like, be there forever. I mean, we like having those lifelong, relationships with our customers, but I think websites are like the easy path in to start those conversations. And then from there, we can expand, if we see needs and the customer's open to that. So that's what I like about the website side of things, and the rest, the bigger types of apps and like business automation and stuff like that. Again, that's more about just because I love efficiency. I'm a big proponent and the way I organize my day and structure things, trying to find efficiency gains and trying to be as productive as possible. I'm big on like work-life balance and finding, being able to step away from work each day and be able to spend time with my family, go get some exercise, do those sort of things. And so efficiency plays a big part in that in my own personal life. And so I just kind of transpose that onto our clients when it comes to our customer projects. And those are things, like I said, I really enjoy.
I love it. They definitely need somebody in their back pocket like you to be able to to help them with those things, because often
Yeah.
it's so hard to see on their own when IT just isn't their thing, or maybe efficiencies aren't even their thing. They know how to run a business, but not necessarily how to make it efficient through tech. Love
Yes.
it. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How do they start their journey with you?
Best way is to reach out to us. You can go to our website at caffeineinteractive.com. It's just all one word, a long word, but caffeineinteractive.com. My email address, happy if anyone wants to reach out directly to me, it's Dustin@caffeineinteractive.com, or you can fill out our contact form on our website that goes directly to me. We're on, Facebook, LinkedIn, and stuff too. You can search for Caffeine Interactive and find us pretty easily. But best way to start our website, it has links to all of that.
Excellent. Well, we will, of course, have all of Dustin's links in the show notes. So scroll down, go and click on those, open them up in a new browser, of course, because we're not done yet. So, Dustin, at what point in life did you know you're a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, it kind of ran in my blood because my parents were entrepreneurs, had their own business and everything. My dad, one of the interesting stories, he back in the 80s, he actually, so he was him and my mom were running a paint contracting business, like commercial painting, basically. And then when computers started becoming more and more commonplace, he ended up getting I think it was like a PC Junior or something like that. And I think before that, we had like Commodore 64 and some of these other, old ancient hardware things. And so he got into it when I was probably, pretty young age, like 7 or 8 years old. And he actually built an estimating program, which he sold to Glidden Paint Company, which I think now is owned by Home Depot. But this was back in the 80s. Like he sold, he built a piece of software and sold it to a big company like that. And like ever since then, it's like, yeah, that was cool. Like seeing how he was able to, run his own company. Him and my mom were able to run their own company. The freedom that gave them in terms of lifestyle. Yeah, I mean, as like as entrepreneurs, it can be pretty overwhelming sometimes. You never feel like you can take a vacation. There's things like that we have to deal with. That's maybe more debilitating than if you go work just a normal job, working in a corporate job or whatever for someone else. But the freedom that it provides and the lifestyle, I think that was what I really valued when I thought about what I wanted to do career wise. And I think it was also working in semiconductor, because I had a computer science background. A lot of the people that I was working with had degrees like in electrical engineering, or they had like MBAs and things like that. And so I noticed that for myself, in order to move up from where I'd kind of plateaued, I'd need to go back and, do some continuous education, work on maybe another degree, say in electrical engineering, master's in electrical engineering, or an MBA. And I just, at that point in my life, I was like not really ready to go back to school. So it was like, well, this would be a good opportunity for me to branch out and kind of explore this entrepreneurship thing that I've always thought about. And, that was back in like 2010, I think is when I left my full-time job and went off on my own, and haven't looked back, and I've really enjoyed it. I can't say it's for everyone. I certainly value people that say, I don't really, it's an entrepreneur thing, I don't really see a lot of value. I'd rather just go to work every day from 9 to 5 and come home and be able to check out and go back again the next day. It's like, I actually kind of admire that in some ways. Maybe I'm even like a little bit jealous that I don't have more of that attitude. But I just felt like I wanted to be more in charge of my fate, my destiny. And I think that's what really drove me down this path.
Nice. You have been absolutely awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
I don't think so. Really appreciate being on your show. I've enjoyed it. And thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time, and I know how valuable it is.
Thanks.
Awesome. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show, share it with your friends. We love helping entrepreneurs grow.
Are you running a business over 7 figures but still struggling with technology headaches? Pay attention, you do not want to miss this offer. This podcast episode is brought to you by Awareness Strategies, who is offering a custom-built digital adoption roadmap for anyone running a business over 7 figures who's wanting to grow their business in the next 5 years. And it's not just a roadmap, they offer full implementation as well if that scares the out of you. Check out awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap for more details today. The link's in the show's notes. Don't regret not doing this. Do it now. That's awarenessstrategies.com/roadmap.